Well, hello everyone, it's Kari back again with you on the channel, and I'm excited because today we're going to do a little bit of foiling with a stencil. It's been some time since I've done some foiling, and I thought it was time. I had these leftover flamingos from a previous project, and I thought they would go really well with these stencils. So I'm trying to decide which stencil do I want to use with the flamingos, and I think the large random dots have won me over today. So we're going to try the large random dots, and then I'm going to take this ins and outs Quatrefoil mask. Now this is one of the pieces you get in that stencil, and I've got some removable adhesive on that. So I'm going to put that down on my card panel first, and then I'm going to put the large random dots stencil over that, and I'm just going to secure it with a little bit of tape here. I had some extra tape on my desk, and so that's what I'm using right now, and it works just fine. So I've got some transfer gel duo here, and I'm going to put a little bit on and then take my scraper tool and just use that to smooth out those dots. Now I did a couple of panels because the first panel I didn't get as smooth as I wanted, and so I did this a couple of times. But this is the first panel that I'm showing you here, and I'm just making sure I've covered all of those random dots with the decofoil duo gel. Now I'll remove that stencil, and then look here, we've got a beautiful result. We're going to wait for this to completely dry before we do any foiling, and I'm going to remove that Quatrefoil stencil, and that's our result. So I'm going to set that aside to dry, and while that's drying, I want to use some of these magnolias from the Magnolia frame die, and these create a beautiful flower with just a few layers here. So they're really simple to put together, and I thought I have some time to color these up while we're waiting for that decofoil gel to dry. I'm using some cool gray markers to start coloring this, and I started with the C5, and then I'm blending that out with the C3, and then I'll go in with a C1 and a C0. I'm only coloring the portions of this bottom layer that aren't going to get covered up by the next couple of layers. So see here, this layer is going to cover up those parts that I didn't color, and now I'm going to use those same markers to add some detail to this layer and blend that through, and then we'll do the same with the top layers. So it's pretty much the same thing over and over. I'm just adding some shading and dimension to make this flower really pop. I just wanted to use grays. I really love the look of pinks and grays together, so that's why I decided on the gray. And really, I want this to be more of a white flower, but I knew that it was going to need a little more shading in order to stand out with that foiled background, and you'll see. To finish off this flower, I colored the center portion with some orange and yellow, and then I'm going to put all of this together. One thing I really did love about this flower is it's pretty simple to figure out how it goes together. I didn't need a layering guide or any pictures to follow. I just layered them up. So see, it's pretty simple, and then this piece right here goes right about there, and then you can go ahead and add that center portion. Just nestle that in right there, and there's our magnolia. Isn't it beautiful? So I'm going to go ahead and color up and add the rest of them. Some of them I'm doing a little lighter. I did 3 flowers total, so this one was a little bit lighter than that one, than the first one. And then for the leaves, I'm going to use a variation of green shades to color this up, but keeping it really, really light. So my darkest shade is going to go right down the center, and then I'm going to blend that out with the mid-tone and then go in with the lightest color. The lightest color is YG01, then I'm using YG03 and YG13. So those are the 3 shades for this one. And see how I'm just blending it out. I'm doing this pretty quickly because these leaves are just going to be a supporting role on this card. So it's very simple, very fast process. I did go around all the edges with one of the shades of green. Now it's time to get into the foiling. I've got 3 different shades of pink decofoil. I've got pink quartz, enchanted rose, and pink melon. And I'm just going to choose a couple of those. And you can see my panels are dry, but some of them are extra thick. So we may get kind of a spreading out look result. So I'm going to run this through my mini ink machine, and I like to put a piece of cardstock underneath just to give it an extra little shim. I have this on my heat setting of 3, and then I run that through with my parchment sheets, and then we will see what we get. So if you have a challenge with foiling, sometimes it's either there's not enough pressure, so you need to add an extra cardstock shim, or it's not hot enough. I find that with my mini mink, I can have it on a level 3, and that works out really great. But I do have a regular size mink as well, and that one I usually have to set to a 4. If you have a laminator, you usually don't have a choice in that. So sometimes I like to run it through twice as well. But look at this, we got a pretty good result. I did get some overfoiling, and I'm going to show you how to deal with that. But let's take a look at the second one here. I just like to loosen it a little bit with my bone folder sometimes, just a habit. And then I'll peel that off, and look at that. It turned out beautiful. I got a pretty good result on both of them, and see these panels here I can save for another use. So with that overfoiling, I'm taking a sand eraser, and I'm just going to work on that foil until I can get that taken care of, and this usually does the trick for me. This was a lot of overfoiling on this one. I usually don't get that much, but I must have just had a smudge of that decofoil gel right there. This one here was a little bit more difficult to get, and so I'm taking my craft knife and just kind of whisking away the extra foil, and there we go. That's gonna do it. So there's a pretty good result on both of them. Now I'll clean up my area, and now we can put together our cards. So let's take a look at these magnolia flowers on there, and then we'll put our flamingos on. I'm going to add a sentiment as well, but I just want to lay this out and just kind of get a feeling of how this is going to all come together. So I've got 3 leaves per panel to go. And if you want, you can put both flamingos on the same panel, but I just thought making 2 cards is sometimes a little better than making 1. And now I'm going to take another part of that Quatrefoil stencil and use it to stencil on kind of a gradient colored ink. I'm using Salvage Patina for this one, so it's a nice light blue-green shade, and I'll just lightly stencil that on just to see how that looks. And we'll just audition that, and I think it's going to need a little more color, so I'm going to add the stencil once again and add some more ink and just go up a little bit further on this one. That's looking good right about there. So let's try that out, and that really helps those magnolias to stand out as well. For this one I wanted to use a darker ink, so I've got Uncharted Mariner, and I'm just going to ink it on pretty lightly. So when you have a darker shade, you can use a little bit less of the color. So there we go, that one looks pretty good right there. And let's test out the flamingo with the magnolia, and I really do like how this one is turning out as well. So for the sentiment, I'm going to choose one of my favorite sentiment stamp sets from Miss Ink Stamps. The Sunshine and Rainbow set has so many good sentiments, and that's this one right here. And I'm just going to check and see which ones are going to fit in the space that I have. I could do a line sentiment and stamp it on a different colored cardstock and cut it out, but today I wanted to stamp it right on that Quatrefoil background. So I'm going to use a smaller sentiment for this one that just says hello, and it's a really cute font. And then on this one right here, I'm using Here's to Sunny Days Ahead. So I'll take my mini Misty and stamp those on, just using some black ink, and I'll stamp it a couple of times to get a nice dark impression. So you can see I've already stamped the one above right there. And now that those are all stamped, we can put these cards together. I just used liquid adhesive to attach all the flowers, leaves, and the flamingo. And I thought I was going to use this teal cardstock to back it, but I really wanted to bring more of that gray in from the magnolia flower. So I've got a light gray cardstock here. It's kind of like a fog cardstock. And I'll use that for the frame around the edges. I did cut the panels down that were foiled, and cutting those panels down really allowed me to remove any of the weird around the edges. Sometimes you get that from foiling. So look at that. There's our result with the gold, or I'm sorry, the pink foil, and with that gray frame. I think it looks really pretty with those magnolias. And isn't that the cutest flamingo? By the way, that's from the Croquet stamp set from Missing Stamps. So I hope you enjoyed this quick tutorial of stenciling and foiling. We also did some coloring and layering of die cuts. So I had a really great time. I hope you did too. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.